Welcome, everyone, to the Publishing Lounge. This is Marcy Bond. I am the CEO and founder of Wild Child Publishing and Freya's Bower. You can find me at wildchildpublishing.com, freyasbower.com, and you can find me on Facebook under Marcy Bond. That's M-A-R-C-I, B as in boy, A-U-N as in Nancy. You can also find my website, marcybond.com. Today, my guest is Scott Harper. He is an author and also a publisher of Umbral Press. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, thanks for having me here today. I've been writing since I was a child, really. That's the only thing I've ever really wanted to do. It's been a long road, but I now have over 30 short stories published, 9 books written by myself. One I just co-authored with my wife, Desiree Lee, recently, Hidden Tribe.
Very nice.
Paperback and ebook. Then I've branched out into screenplays and comic book work over the years too, in the past few years. So I keep busy.
So I understand that you write in multiple genres. Do you have a favorite genre, or which genres do you write in? I would imagine, judging from some of the things that Desiree posts, that one of them is horror.
Yeah, I started off as basically getting a reputation as a fantasy author. Of the 30-something short stories I've published, most of those are fantasy. My first novel, which is actually the only other book I have a copy of right here physically, Winter's Right. This is young adult fantasy. This is my first book. I actually self-published it through Lulu. And a sequel to it, Well Wishes, which was also fantasy. Then my third book, Gauntlet, which I also self-published through Lulu, was an action-adventure book. It was essentially a comic book with no illustrations in it. And that confused people. They're saying, okay, wait, you're a fantasy author and you're writing, comic book style action-adventure. What's going on here? But,
right.
I have 3 books I've written in my Wendy Markland series, which those are paranormal horror. Those are unfortunately not available at the moment because I parted ways with the publisher that had those out. But I'm like you said, multiple genres bouncing back and forth. Hidden Tribe is actually, it would classify probably as adventure. It's actually written from the point of view of 2 different Sasquatch. The whole story revolves around the Sasquatch. It's written from the point of view of 2 of them. One of the, actually 2 projects keep bouncing back and forth between right now. One's fantasy, one's urban fantasy. Both started off, well, actually one of them started off as a comic book idea that I tried for years to get picked up and wasn't able to. Comics are actually hard to get going. Trying to pull everything together with the art, the penciler, the inker, finding a publisher. That's the fantasy one. The urban fantasy started off as a web series idea that didn't go over. So I kind of adapted it to a comic book, and again, same problem, not able to get it up and running. So I'm working on actually the first novella in a series for that too right now. That's urban fantasy. The first of the fantasy novellas is actually in for editing right now. Warder, Changing Guard. So I'm all over the place.
Now, it sounds like that you have multiple projects going on at the same time. How do you keep track of all of that?
It can be tough sometimes. I usually have several works in progress. If I'm not on a deadline for any certain project, I have the luxury of, which one am I most in the mood to work on right now. If I'm on a deadline for something, of course, that takes precedence. So actually, in part because of Hidden Tribe being in the works at the time, I'm actually writing a series of articles for a Sasquatch blog right now called Big Truth. The series of articles is called Harper's Histories. I'm actually working on a series of articles focusing on not modern day Sasquatch sightings and encounters, but ones that have happened in the past, early 1900s, back into the 1800s. So I'm trying to do one a month of those. So it's like, deadline scheduling, but so I'm trying to keep up with those plus the books, and Desiree and I have the Moonwraith webcomic running too. It's a werewolf horror webcomic. New page goes up every Monday at moonwraith.com. So, with that one, actually, Moonwraith began as a TV series idea several years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's gone through 4 agents. Nothing's ever happened with it. The agents have all done nothing with it. So Desiree and I actually adapted it to a web comic, and we're just over 200 pages right now of it up on the website. So actually a lot of hits on it too. So it's actually been pretty popular for us. It's a free web comic. So
did you copyright the idea at least?
The most recent television pilot draft for Moonwraith is registered with the Writers Guild. That's the actual good. Comic book, the web comic, we've not actually done that with yet. But.
Although technically it is copyrighted because it's up on and you've written it. But, you know, if you were to ever have to defend your rights, then you want the copyright. But it's not absolutely necessary as long as you can prove how far back you go.
Right. Yeah, the website keeps track of like the exact minute when a page was put up. So we're a little over 200 pages up now, so it's going back a few years.
So what do you think about, for instance, the show, I haven't seen it for a while, but Finding Bigfoot? Have you ever watched that?
Yeah, not only watched it, an episode earlier this season, Desiree and I actually appeared in.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was the episode. It was set in Oregon. They filmed in Chiloquin, Oregon, which we're in Northern California, which we say Northern California, we're like 3 miles from the Oregon border. So we're Northern California.
Right. So you guys you've moved. At one point you were more near just north of Stockton. So
since I moved out here 4 years ago, and we've been here the whole time.
Okay, let me. Maybe I don't have here. Okay, that's where you are. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else because I thought they were in Lodi, and which is just north of Stockton. But yeah, you're way up there.
Yeah, like I said, about 3 miles from the Oregon border. So it actually seems more like we live in Oregon and just, you know, it's next thing to Oregon right here.
Right.
But we found out that an episode of Finding Bigfoot was filming up in Chiloquin, Oregon. So we ended up going up there for the town hall meeting, which anyone that's seen the show knows, you know, the town hall meeting scenes.
Mm-hmm. So, we've seen it. I've seen him. My daughter loves the show. We had
actually, growing up in Ohio, I've had sightings of Sasquatch before, and Desiree has had a couple of possible sightings. We'd hoped to be able to talk about that at the Finding Bigfoot Town Hall meeting, but because they were filming specifically with this episode, the angle on the historical sightings in the area for the Native American tribes, the natives that were there got to speak first. They didn't have time for any non-natives.
Right.
But when the episode was filmed, when it aired, you can see Desiree and I in the audience several times. Most of the people, when they were standing up giving their accounts, they were like either right beside or behind us. So we're on camera here and there throughout the episode from that. So we more than watched the show.
That's so cool. My daughter would be fascinated with that. Actually, I find it interesting when we checked out a book out of the library because the title was misleading. It was talking about, for instance, like UFOs and Bigfoot and all of these other phenomenon, and that's what the title led us to believe. And then when we actually got the book, all it did was try to discredit all of those things. Okay. And that frustrated both my daughter and I because I feel like there's so many mysteries and there's just no possible way for us to say no. You know what I mean? If you say no, these don't exist, it's I don't know. I think it makes you look more ignorant. I actually think that it's more likely that they do than they don't. And and they just happen to be better at disguising themselves than we are, if you know what I mean. I when I grew up as a kid, I grew up in a house where there was a lot of paranormal activity.
Same here.
And so but we didn't where we were at, there wasn't Bigfoot. So I think it was too populated of an area with too many dogs. And I mean, we're out in the country, but we were still surrounded by other people. And I think that you need to be a little bit more secluded than we were.
I don't know how secluded you'd really have to be. I mean, where I grew up, we lived right. I grew up in Marysville, Ohio, and we were kind of right at the. It was a small farm town, from what I've heard. I moved out of there in the summer of 1998, and from what I've heard, Marysville has more than tripled in size since then. But we were right where the residential area kind of tapered out going into the farmland,
Right.
and little patches of woods here and there. And it was, right. It was like right there at this, like, the edge of the residential areas where I had my sightings. So
Huh.
there was
Well,
actually,
maybe.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So then there was actually a sighting I heard of that came out of someplace in Texas a few years ago, where one actually went into someone's house during the day. So
Wow.
from what I'd heard, the guy, it was just the man and his daughter home that day, and the daughter was in her room sleeping, and the guy fell asleep on the couch, and the Sasquatch ripped a hole in the screen, came in through an open sliding glass door through the house. The guy never realized it came through. He heard his daughter scream. I guess from her report was that she had felt something tickling her face and woke up to find a Sasquatch leaning over top of her, gently touching her face. She screamed. Her dad jumped up off the couch in time to see the creature run back through the living room and out the door.
Wow.
Or not, I don't know, but that's one of the reports I've read. So,
Wow. No, I guess maybe in California they tend to stick to the Sierra Nevada. I mean, the mountainous ranges. I don't think we have any sightings in Southern California. At least I'm not aware of them. If we do, I haven't heard about them. I mean, we have a lot of bears. Not where I live. We have mountain lions.
yeah, we
might have
those
mountain lions down here, but I don't know.
bear mountain lion up here too.
Yeah, yeah. But I think they tend to they tend to be up in the Sierra Nevada. So
Yeah, my engine. Sorry.
yeah, it's okay. My neighbor is. My neighbor is coming looking for one of his child, and she's not here. So
we have neighbor's dog barking right now, so I don't know if it's actually being recorded here or not. But
no, I can't hear it. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
No, so this is so I think that's really fascinating. What, other than being interested in Sasquatch or Bigfoot, what inspired you to write an actual book on this topic?
It's something that I've been interested in for most of my life. I mean, like I said, I grew up in Marysville, Ohio, and we had the sightings close to us. So Hidden Tribe is actually kind of a little bit based on experiences that I had, and Desiree she has had maybe a couple of sightings. We're not really sure on those. We actually, after the actual story at the end of Hidden Tribe, we actually discuss our personal experiences with the subject, sightings, and things. But part of it is also just like you said, or you're alluding to, just the sheer amount of evidence for the existence of these creatures is sort of discussed in here. And it's one of those things that it's sort of an interest that became a hobby that's become work with Hidden Tribe, and then doing the blog post articles for the Big Truth blog also. So, and actually, if I ever continue with my Wendy Markland series, I have a Sasquatch idea in mind for a Wendy Markland story too. I just need to get the first 3 of those need to be published again so I can continue on.
Are you going to go re-release those under Umbral Press? Is it press or publishing?
Press. We're talking about that. We just haven't gotten that far along yet.
Yeah.
A few years ago, there was actually a film and TV producer and director who I was working with on some other projects that unfortunately have fallen through. But he found I was trying to actually get a Wendy Marklin comic book picked up, and he found out about it, and he actually started his own comic book publishing company and wanted this Wendy Marklin comic to be the flagship book for this comic publishing company. So it's like all of that would have been really great, but again, like I said earlier, getting a comic book up and running is very difficult, and we had problems, and that whole project just sort of fell apart. Last I heard from this guy on the subject, he's still interested, but he wants to wait until those 3 existing books, Predators of Prey, Necromancer, and Vindicated, are re-released, and then basically start from scratch on the comic book again. So whether that happens or not, or where any of that goes, I have no idea at this point.
Will you be doing, before you release them, I mean, if you do it through your own house, will you be doing any revising, or are you going to be keeping them the way they are? I know that sometimes authors will revise books once they've been released from a house.
Yeah, they'll be revised and released and before they're released.
But I was going to ask you, how many projects do you have going?
Several.
So I was thinking, that would just be adding to the pile.
Yeah, like I said, I'm working on the first Raven-esque novella. That's the urban fantasy one, Raven-esque Unfamiliar. The first Warder novella, Warder Changing Guard. Like I said, Raven-esque and Warder were comic ideas that got adapted. Desiree and I are keeping up the Moonwraith webcomic. I'm writing the Sasquatch articles for the Big Truth blog. It's just juggling everything, being a stay-at-home dad and a writer too. It's fun.
And at the age she is right now, she's going to be into everything.
She turns 3 next month, so yes.
Yes,
strong-willed, very stubborn, very intelligent. Yeah.
All of that good stuff that you're happy about, but it doesn't make life that easy.
Yeah. We have matching end tables in the living room that actually, as you're looking at the front, they look like stacks of books, with each drawer, like book spine, being a pull-out drawer. Our daughter had basically just learned to walk, and she found out that if she pulled each drawer out to different increments, they made a really wonderful set of stairs that she could climb up on top of these. So, yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're not that far.
Yeah, you look over and she's halfway up there, freezing, going, what are you doing? She's like, nothing. And she keeps coming back down, and you push the drawers in, you hear them scrape, and look, and she's doing it again. So, yeah. Imagine, trying to write and then trying to run around after a not quite 3-year-old, too.
Yeah, no, I remember doing that. Yeah, mine was a climber. We're not that far from chimpanzees, so...
She gets it honest. I used to climb everything too when I was little, so. But,
so did I.
Yeah, with the projects I'm working on, actually my best-selling action-adventure novel, Quintana-Roo, Yucatan, a lot of fans are interested in me writing a sequel to that, so I'm kind of bouncing ideas around for a follow-up to that too. Desiree and I are actually working on a nonfiction book for authors. We're also working on an RPG game book that's just kind of gotten set aside because of lack of time, and so it's one of those things like, we plan to get the RPG out eventually, but who knows when. We work on it a little bit, and then it has to get set aside for other things, and we don't touch it for months. So,
do you do much RPG?
Unfortunately, not so much the tabletop, like dice rolling, like we're creating here. Desiree and I both play EverQuest, so that's most of my RPG experience is playing EverQuest.
Okay.
We both play dwarves. I play a dwarf rogue. She plays a dwarf cleric. We're on the Track and On server, so if anyone wants to log on and play with us, look for Rolton Orange and Ara on there. And please join us. Like to have a larger group, but yeah, that's most of my RPG experience has been playing like EverQuest or like the Fable games on the Xbox consoles. I've done very little of the actual tabletop like dice rolling. That
Right.
eating, but we just like I said, it's such a huge undertaking to create something like that. It just keeps getting set aside. We work on it a little bit, and then oh yeah, hey, we don't have time for this. We have this other project that needs done, and so we're both juggling several projects. Like I said, a couple of things are co-authored, and so we just got Hidden Tribe out recently. So the paperback edition just came out officially this past weekend.
Where can they buy that?
You can find the book on Amazon, Kobo, Omnilit. So it's Barnes and Noble.
And iTunes or?
It's not on iTunes. No, we've actually not been able to get anything up on that site yet. We've due to technical difficulties. We would very much like to, but every time we try, there's a problem with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of those things we hope to do eventually.
Is it the problem with the actual file?
Something with the formatting. Yeah, we've never been able to. Every time, no matter how it's formatted, iTunes rejects it. So we don't know what's going on.
Okay.
But like I said, the Hidden Tribe, that's our new release. It's actually the first thing that she and I have co-authored together that's been released.
How is it writing with your spouse?
Fun.
That's not sarcastic, is it?
No, it's an enjoyable time.
That's good.
To work with her, and it's nice too. You're right there with the person, living with them, so you can discuss ideas and bounce ideas off of each other and things like that. It's not like send an email and wait hours or days for a reply or something. And
is one of you the primary writer, or do you bounce back and forth between chapters, or how do you do that?
On Hidden Tribe, I did most of the actual writing of it on here, and then she took it and went over and basically added and fleshed some things out. That I did the primary writing on this, but she did put a lot of effort into the book also, and it's like I said, it's a co-author joint effort, so
that's fun.
Yeah, the book for writers that we're doing, we're both doing a lot of writing on that. So we've actually, I think, pretty much have our material. We just need to get everything organized and get it out there. Hopefully find a publisher for it, since it's a nonfiction book and Umbral Press is publishing fiction.
So what do you find to be the most challenging part of writing, or the whole writing publishing business?
Probably promotion for me. The writing is the fun part. Editing is where the work comes in, and then once the book is out, trying to promote it and find the audience for the book. And there's a fine line between promoting and hitting people over the head. Buy this book, buy this book, buy this book. So it's kind of hard to hit that fine line in there. So that's like the publishing and the sales aspect, I think, is the hardest part of it for me.
I don't think you're alone.
Excuse me.
I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of authors tend to be more solitary people. And not that we don't enjoy being around other people, but we just are okay not being around other people too.
Desiree always, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Desiree always laughs at me because I call myself an urban hermit. I live in town, but I'm pretty much a hermit, staying at home and in the office writing. And so, yeah, she always laughs at me about that, and she's actually thrown that out online a couple of times. Scott's an urban hermit.
I've never heard that terminology, but I don't think you're alone. I think there's a lot of urban hermits.
Yeah, I've been calling myself that for years. So she always laughs at me about that.
I think I would be more so if I didn't have so much to do. You know what I mean? If I didn't have to go out and get stuff done and and I homeschool my daughters, so then I have places to take her and things to do, and so I'd probably be out less than I am now. I just noticed one of my cats was sitting down over there on top of a piece of paper because that's the one piece of paper on the entire floor, and the cat has found it.
If there's not one on the floor, they'll put one there.
Yeah, that's so true.
Love cats. We don't have a cat now, but I've always had cats in the past. I love cats. My favorite animal.
Is there a reason? Is there a reason why you don't have a cat, or?
The cat that I would like to have with us right now, both of us would like to have with us right now, is actually in Florida with my parents. So she's temperamental. So my parents want to move out here to California. They're still in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. So we hope they will move out here and bring Callie with them, and we can see how Callie and our daughter do together, because Callie, she thinks it's very fun to chase you across the room, biting at your ankles and things like that. So we need to see how, a small child was going to get along with her. So
probably not very well.
So yeah, we haven't gotten a cat here because we're hoping to get Callie out here with us at some point. It just hasn't happened yet. But yeah, she's temperamental.
Well, when I was pregnant with my daughter, the cat that's sitting down here, she's almost 16 now, so she's older than my daughter. And she used to sit on top of my belly bump and purr. And so we have all of our cats were always very, very good with my daughter. I think we had an understanding, but they were always very good with her. And actually other little kids, if little kids came around, and the kids were bothering them, they just hid. So they didn't scratch them, they didn't bite them, they just run and hide. And usually I told the kids to leave them alone because they're very good at tormenting cats and animals. Yeah. So
yeah, if someone comes to the door that Callie doesn't know, she'll run and hide. But then once she kind of gets used to them being there, she'll come out and start warming up to them. And then it's not long before it's, I want to bite because it's fun.
Have you seen that show My Cat from Hell or whatever?
No.
It's kind of like The Dog Whisperer, where the guy comes in. He's a cat animal behaviorist, and he comes in. He works with the people so that their cats are easier to live with.
Now, Callie's fine most of the time. That's just like she's a tortoiseshell calico, and a lot of people said, that's the most temperamental cat you can have, and yeah, I believe it. But yeah, she will actually when she was a little kitten when we adopted her, you could hold your hands cupped, and she would just right in your hand. She was a little fuzzy ball. When she would start to get annoyed, she would flip her ears back, and she looked like a fuzzy little owlet sitting there with her ears back. So we started when she ears back. So to this day, she will sit there and give you the owl ears, and you know that she's about to come after you, and she will start nipping at your feet and chase you through the house, and then kind of give you this hard bite on the ankle and just look at you just like, yeah, there, take that, and then turn around and walk away. If you so much as touch her tail, she'll turn around and at your ankle again.
Have you ever incorporated beyond Bigfoot? The Bigfoot, have you ever incorporated any of the animals or Callie's traits into any of your stories?
Not yet, no. That may happen at some point, but as of right now, no, it hasn't.
Yeah, I don't really write about animals either. Although I guess that's not entirely true. I have a story about a wolf shifter, and I'm currently writing a story about a snow leopard shifter. But other than that, my characters don't seem to have animals. I don't know why. Maybe it just gets in the way of of the plot. Now, are you a plotter or pantser?
Plotter.
You're a plotter.
Yeah. People that have looked at my outlines have said I'm insane for writing outlines like I do. I don't write the ABC 1, 2, 3 outlines that most people are trained to do. I'll just start off an outline, chapter 1, and then just do just a long run-on paragraph that might go for 4 or 5 pages. I'll even throw like little snippets of dialogue or something in as it pops in my mind while I'm outlining, because if not, when I get to writing that scene, it's like I cannot think of dialogue as good as what just popped into my mind while I was outlining. So my outlines end up just being massive, like almost a rough draft. My best-selling novel, Quintana Yucatan, in paperback, the paperback edition of it is, I think, 564 pages long. The outline for that book was, I think, like 180 some pages. So,
wow.
Yeah, my outlines are, like I said, people have looked at my outlines before and just said, this is insane. It's like, this isn't an outline, it's a rough draft. It's next thing to it. But,
do you have any links for so that people could know where to? I know it's on Amazon, but it makes it easier for people to be able to buy. And also, is Umbral Press, is that umbralpress.com or?
Yes, umbralpress.com. Hopefully this works.
Did I spell that right? I think I did. Let's see, open. All right.
Okay. Okay, I just put my Amazon page on here, but I'm being told it doesn't show up yet. So
I see it.
So let me try it over here in the chat then. And okay, there we go. There's my Amazon page. All my work is available there.
Great.
And Umbral Press's page for Hidden Tribe, with the other places it's available, is right there. So that's the links to it on Kobo, OmniLit, every place it's up right now.
So you write fantasy, horror, urban fantasy, and paranormal? Are those the different?
And some action adventure. Quintana Yucatan and Hidden Tribe both fall into that category. And some of the short stories I've had published have been science fiction, but I haven't done too much science fiction yet.
Right.
That's one of those things. I actually have an idea for a science fiction novel that I've been trying to write for years, that every time I start it just never works out for me. So I get part way into it and then just, okay, this isn't working, it gets set aside. And then a few years later, so, okay, I'm going to work on this again. And I start it up and it's still not working, gets set aside. And so hopefully someday it actually gets written. Like I said, actually, 4 of my books are not available right now. The 3 Wendy Markland books that I had out are not available right now. And then Shadow Casts as in like sects, and divisions. Book 1 is also not available right now. It's, again, the publisher I parted ways with. So Shadowcast is the book of it that's out is book 1 of a trilogy. I have books 2 and 3 outlined, so they're essentially rough drafted. But the first book needs to be re-edited and re-released again before I can go on with books 2 and 3. That one, actually, I really need to find a different way of, I think, reintroducing the Shadowcast trilogy to readers when it comes out again, when book 1 comes out. That one confuses people. It's a vampire. There are vampires and werewolves in the story, but they're psychic vampires, not blood drinkers. And the way that I handle werewolf transformations isn't the usual person transforming into a werewolf. I take the more Native American route, where it's essentially like a thought form energy construct, expanding out of the person, forming a shell around them. So that's why it hurts if they fight the transformation. This energy trying to come out, it hurts. And I've had reviewers read the first Shadowcast book when it was out, and they're scratching their head saying, wait a minute, vampires that don't drink blood, werewolves that don't shapeshift, what is this? And it just kind of confused a lot of people. But then I had others just, hey, this is great. It's a new take on vampires and werewolves I've never encountered before. But like I said, on the other hand, other people are just scratching their heads saying, okay, we don't get vampires that don't drink blood or werewolves that don't shapeshift. So
that's interesting, because I've read stories about like psychic vampires. So that's kind of it's not like it's a absolutely new concept.
Right. Yeah, apparently no one that had read the first Shadowcast book and it was out had really encountered the concept before or something. And like I said, it was confusing to some people.
Well, I recently had someone who picked up my newest release, The Whispering House, and I had said something to the effect that my mom, this is the first book of mine that she's ever read, actually, of anything that my house has published. She tends to read more either things on alternative health, or she'll read more like self-help. So she doesn't really read fiction. That's not her interest. But when my book released, she said, I want a copy. And so I sent it to her. And she still lives in the house that I grew up in. And it is, even though it's surrounded, I mean, it's in a subdivision out in the middle of nowhere. There's still a good distance between houses. There's still, they're on like a half an acre to an acre of land kind of thing. So there's enough space. And she has a lot of windows in her house, and it's got paranormal, some horror in there, and some urban fantasy, and it's got some sex in there. What can I say? And so I commented about how that it actually had my mom a little scared. And one of the persons who had purchased the book, she said, I had to set the book down because it was getting too late and I didn't want to have nightmares. And I'm like, yes.
I've said before, I branched out into screenwriting. Uh-huh. What actually got me involved in screenwriting, I was still living in Florida at the time, and one of the short stories that I had published years ago is called Black Eyed. It's 6-7 pages, something like that. It's a short story. Uh-huh. It's essentially a vampire story, even though I never used the word vampire in the story at all. A actor, writer, director, and producer had found Black Eyed online and liked it so well, he ended up having me write 2 screenplays for his production company. Someone had told me when I was living in Florida, someone that I knew there had read the story in the local shopping mall, brightly lit, full of people, and she said reading it there even gave her chills. So it was just like, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first Wendy Markland novel, Predators of Prey, I've been told by several readers that they had nightmares after reading it. So that's always fun to hear that she gave someone nightmares.
Well, this wasn't really meant to give nightmares. It is very creepy. There's points of it where it was very creepy. She talked about, when they talked about these creatures that are after the protagonist, that they were keening for her. She was like, yep, had to set it down for just a bit. so before it got too dark, so I could go to bed and not be too scared. And I get what my mom's talking about, because I don't think it really has that much going on there now. But when I was a kid, we had a lot of paranormal activity, things that used to happen all the time in the house. Like I said, there's a lot of windows and not a lot of drapes. so so you could be sitting there and have this huge sliding glass door the size of the wall, and it'd be dark out and you can't see anybody out there, but they'd be able to see in. So it
Right.
gets a little creepy. I don't know. He says he's not. You're not getting any picture or sound, David? This is, he came in to see us. I don't know. All of my technology is finally working.
Yeah, everything's working on this end.
So I'm not sure. I know that someone else, I went briefly over to Facebook, and someone else was saying that the link wasn't working, but I know that the link was working because I posted it up. Yeah. Because that's the link that I had to use to get in. For whatever reason, it wasn't showing up on my profile that this was set to go, even though I had it set to go. It was very bizarre. Sometimes this is Blab is beta, so sometimes things don't work exactly how they're supposed to. But I hope that David can get in.
Me too.
He asked some really great questions. So I was looking at your Amazon page, and it looked like you had between, you told me you have like 10 books released?
Yeah, 9 myself, and then I said Hidden Tribe is co-authored with my wife, Desiree Lee. So the one you see listed on my Amazon page, Quagmire Finn, is actually a novella.
Uh-huh.
Everything else is full-length novels. The Predators of Prey paperback you see up there, I'm no longer with that publisher, but Amazon, for some reason, will not take that listing down. They just keep it there.
Interesting.
So, why the publishers contacted them, I don't know how many times, requesting them to be taken down, and Amazon has not taken it down. I don't know why.
So but it's a paperback, or?
That was a paperback, yes.
Well, I'll tell you why they probably don't take it down, is that they might still have a copy of it. Or there's people selling it, although it says 2 new and 6 used. So there's people in their marketplace that are selling it.
Okay.
And that's why they don't take it down, but it doesn't mean that it's it doesn't mean that it's still available. So once those are gone, then it'll disappear off of not Facebook, Amazon, unless it seems like sometimes they're one of the same thing. But unless someone else ends up trying to sell it, that kind of thing. I saw a new one up there for $100.
Okay.
So when I clicked through the link, it said buying options. It didn't say like you can. So you either had to buy from used or you had to buy new, and the probably the 2 new ones on there were someone who had them, or so. I don't know how it works, but I do know that they'll keep a listing up there if someone is selling it in the marketplace.
Yeah, I noticed, I think it was earlier today, someone has a copy of Quintana Roo Yucatan they're trying to sell for like $70-some.
They like to see what they can get. You know, I mean, sometimes they get really crazy about how much they're going to sell it for, and it's like, that's probably never going to sell. Not saying that yours won't sell for $75, but I'm just saying that, sometimes they'll put some insane amount, like $1,500 for. It's like, I can buy a new one for less than $15. Why would I want to buy a used one for $1,500?
Exactly. Excuse me.
He's not here.
Yeah.
So my daughter is supposed to go to parkour today. So, and my husband has to take her because I have this going on, and he is not here yet. Maybe he's looking for a place to park. It's that time of year. We live We live relatively close to the local high school, and so there's only 2 days left for the high school, and when that happens, then the parking on our street is just crazy. So um, you know it it makes it kind of difficult to find
Sure.
a place to park. And the garage, which is meant for a car, is not really for the car. It's for all
Everything
your
but the car.
yeah. At one point we were oh okay, so he's leaving now, which means he's not going to get home in time to take her. Um, but yeah, when we redid our kitchen, and when we redid our kitchen, uh, all of the stuff that was in the kitchen went into the garage, and that has been 2 years now. we haven't we haven't reorganized it now yet in order to get a car back into the garage. I think we need to do that, though. That would be very nice.
Yeah, we bought this house 2 years ago, and everything you see is the color of the wall behind me, just white. And we want to repaint everything, and we've got things. It's okay, when we get this room repainted, we'll put shelves up and do this with it, but we need to get repainted first. And so far, we've gotten the kitchen partially repainted. So a color called electric lime. It's a lot more colorful than the white.
Yes, that would be a lot more colorful than light.
Yeah, it's a nice bright green.
Well, this you can't tell behind me. It's actually kind of a champagne yellow, but the walls have been painted this color forever, and since before my daughter was born. And I really do want to repaint, but I really don't want to move everything to do it.
Right. That's here. I mean, we've only been in this house 2 years, but yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, we got to repaint this room. We have to move, all of the stuff here, and it's going to be really fun. Is in the office, my comic book collection's in there. That's going to be really fun to move.
Well, it's not really that hard, and doesn't really take that much time when there's nothing to move around, but it's all part of it. So when you write your stories, do things in real life spill over into your stories? I mean, are you inspired by anything in real life, or where do you get your inspiration?
It comes from all over the place, but I don't normally base usually don't base events or anything like that on like real occurrences. Hidden Tribe was actually a departure from that for me, actually using some of the experiences that I had growing up in Ohio to as the basis of a couple of the things in the book. But usually I don't do that.
Yeah. I use sometimes I use stuff. This wasn't actually one of the scenes in my latest book. The final scene, like the big finale, was a dream I had. So I'd been so immersed in writing the book that one night while visiting my mom, I had the dream, and I'm like, that's it. That's the ending. Now all I have to do is get to the ending. So like I said, I'm a pantser. So and if I did what you did, which was write everything out, my attention span isn't that long. I'm like, okay, I know what's going to happen. I'm bored. I'm done. I'm gone.
I'm just the opposite. I need to know how the story is going to end before I even start really working on, writing it. Otherwise, I find myself wandering all over the place and, just not really, I need an ending to be working toward rather than just, if I try to just, write it as I'm going. I can do that with a short story, but like novella length novel, or if I'm working on a comic book or a screenplay, I need an outline. Otherwise, I wander all over the place, and then it's when I finally do get to an ending, it's like, wow, half of what I just wrote just doesn't even belong here. It doesn't build toward this ending at all. And then that makes the editing that much harder, too.
Well, I've also found when I plot, my characters just laugh at me. And
Sometimes.
suddenly I'll say, okay, this is what's going to happen here, and they're like, no, it's not. This is what's going to happen here.
The biggest problem I've ever had with that was when I was working on Predators of Prey, the first Wendy Markland novel, which I guess is not available right now. Wendy's boyfriend in the book, Jacob Iverson, I have never had a character fight me as much as Jacob did, ever. It was one of those things. It's like people that don't write, they don't understand that. They'll say, "Oh, well, you're the writer. You're creating this character. You're creating the events. You're controlling everything." Yeah, some characters, like I said, Jacob was the worst I've ever had with that. Just like you said, just laugh, and it's just like, no, you're wanting me to go right, I'm going left, and it was, yeah.
No,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
I froze. Okay, there we go. I'm back. No, I know exactly what you mean. Matter of fact, I was stuck. I started writing the Whispering House. How many years ago? A long time ago, 11 or 12 years ago, and it was originally written as it was going to be a paranormal erotic romance. That was the intent. I got about 5 chapters in, and then my muse just got up and walked away and said, because I think I was trying to make it into something it wasn't. And then finally, I joined, I did a NaNoWriMo, and I said, okay, I just want to finish it. Doesn't have to be extremely long or anything, because I'm not known for writing really long stories. I tend to write more novellas. Before that, the longest story I'd written was maybe like 20,000 words. And that's fine. But this one ended up being almost 60, which is, oh my gosh, that's a lot for me. I don't write huge. And some of it is because of my attention span for that. I can read really long books and have a complete attention span for reading that and editing and everything. But when it comes to writing, I'm like, okay, we got other stories to go or something else to do. We got to go do this. But with this, so I decided, okay, I'm just going to finish it and then we'll see where we go. I can do revising or whatever, which I hate doing. I don't want to revise. And so then when I ended up writing, suddenly it turned into a completely different than what I thought it was going to be. It was not really, there's a romance in it, but it wasn't about the romance anymore. It was about the journey of the protagonist. And I kind of think that most of my romance that I write, there doesn't tend to be much conflict between the two characters. And that's the whole thing, is there needs to be some type of conflict, something separating, keeping the two characters apart. And I enjoy reading that, but my problem is that that's not, for me, that's not really real life. When you start liking somebody or for me, that's not my real life. I should put that out there. I'm kind of straightforward, and I just don't care to have all the trauma and the drama of, I either like you or I don't. And if you're going to play games with me, then I don't have any time for you. So, and I guess that's how it is when I write. So it's like, okay, this is going to be a romance, but there's going to be other things that are going to be the obstacles more than the couples having issues. And not that I don't, there aren't times when my husband and I don't have issues, because, well, it's real life. But, it's not what keeps us from being together, obviously. I don't know. I mean, you don't write romance. I know that Desiree does.
Yeah.
Okay. somebody calling that I don't know. So I'm not going. Well, I wouldn't answer it anyway, but so so that was, I think, have you ever found that to be the case? Even though you plot everything out, sometimes it's just not working. The plot's not working, or you find yourself, you've hit a wall.
Yeah, like I said, I'll do my outlines are borderline rough drafts anyway. But even then, when I start working on my official rough draft, there's always things that end up they don't work the way I thought they would, or hope they would, or planned, and things get changed even with having that detailed of an outline. And or there are times like again, Predators of Prey. When I wrote the first draft of it, the book was actually written from Jacob's point of view, Wendy's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't really work for me. And then it hit me one day for some out of nowhere. It's even though it was from Jacob's point of view, it was Wendy's story. She's the one that goes through the transitional arc and is a different person at the end of the story as she is at the beginning. Jacob is still the same jerk at the end he is at the beginning.
Right.
So it's just like, oh, okay. And I ended up just rewriting the entire book from Wendy's point of view and found that it worked much, much better.
Right.
And then what you said about like the romance plots, I don't write romance, but even like Katana War Yucatan, like I said, on paperback, it's like 564 pages long, and it was meant to be just a straight out action adventure. One of the reasons it's so long is I end up starting the book much sooner than like in the sequence of events that I had originally planned on. I had planned originally for the book to pick up when Ricky and her team are arriving at the ruins in the Yucatan Peninsula. But I was thinking then, it was okay, that's not really going to give readers time to get to know the characters because they get there, things start to happen. So I ended up actually starting the book earlier on their trek through the jungle to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And a romance subplot just sort of appeared almost by itself and got woven in. So the book just kind of grew from what I had originally intended, which is one of the reasons that's the longest thing by far I've ever written. And like I said, 564 pages, I think, is what it turned out to be in paperback. That's in the oversized paperback format, too.
Oh, wow.
Thick. Nice chunky book, yeah. Yeah, it's when we ordered copies of it, we knew it was going to be a large book, and when a box of them showed up, we opened it up, and Desiree and I just stood there saying, wow. Wow, that's a big book. But, yeah, it's one thing to know the specs of it, know what to expect, but actually seeing it printed in front of you and holding it, it's like, yeah, it was wow, that's a big book.
So how did you do the research? Have you been down to the Yucatan Peninsula and walked through the jungles, or did you just do a lot of reading online? And
I lived in the Tampa Bay area of Florida for 14 years. So
you can talk. It's my child.
Okay.
I was just muting it so I could say something to her so that you wouldn't hear me talk.
Okay. Now, I lived in Florida for 14 years in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. So that's actually as close to the Yucatan as I've ever been. So I was being somewhat familiar with the climate there because of, living in where I lived in Florida is actually classified as semi-tropical because of it does get cold in the winter once in a while. I mean, 14 years I lived there, I did see snow flurries once. But it's actually like semi-tropical there, not true tropics like, the Yucatan.
Right.
But being somewhat familiar with the environment there, the hurricane season, from living there, and then just doing research and actually exchanging some emails with a couple of people who were familiar with the area, doing research that way. And I must have done a fairly good job at least, because I've had several readers say that just reading the book just made them feel like they were in that sweltering, muggy humidity and just made them really feel like they were there in the tropics. I've had one person at least comment that if that's what it's really like, I never want to go to the tropics because it was just making me feel uncomfortable in the mugginess and the rain just reading this book. And so I must have done a fairly good job of getting the the climate and everything right there.
Well, it sounds like you did.
But yeah, I've never actually been there, and I don't deal well with humidity myself. Living in Florida like I did, just kind of instead of getting used to it, it kind of went the opposite direction. I have no tolerance for it anymore.
But if you grew up in Ohio, doesn't Ohio get muggy?
And during the summer it can, but it's for a short period during the summer, not like 9 months or more of the year in Florida. Where it's like 90 some degrees and 100% humidity and you can't breathe. It feels like you have a damp sponge clamped right here trying to breathe through because the air is just so thick and humid. It's just disgusting. I can't handle it.
So being up towards the Oregon border, Northern California can get hot, but
yeah, we've had a couple of days already this year. We've been in the 90s, but then tomorrow night's low is supposed to be 34. So you never know.
Last weekend I was out in Palm Springs and it was 118.
Wow.
Not humid. Their humidity is because it's a desert, but it's still, I'd step outside and I'm like, okay, I'm okay. And then a few minutes later, not so much walking across this blacktop. I don't like this at all.
Yeah, we took our honeymoon in Arizona and we flew into Phoenix. It was, I think, 113 that day.
Yeah.
And you walk outside and it's, it's hot, but at least there's no humidity. So it was much more tolerable.
She wants to know where her flip-flops are because I wear them. But I don't know. Anyway, yeah, no, it's definitely hot. Are your the ones that aren't fantasy, are they set in modern times, or do you ever do anything that's more historical beyond the articles that you're currently writing?
If it's not fantasy, it's usually set in modern times. We did that with Hidden Tribe, Quintana Roo, Yucatan. Quagmire Finn is urban fantasy. It's actually set basically in a swamp for the most part, but it's there's a little bit that takes place in a modern city, and so the stuff, even the urban fantasy stuff like Quagmire Finn and the Raven-esque novella I'm working on right now, it's modern day urban fantasy.
Yeah, see, because my other than this one, and actually there's a couple other that are okay, that are easy, but it does seem like that my muse likes very difficult things to research. So if I'm going to write a story, for instance, the one I'm currently writing is set in China in the 1960s. And there's not a lot of, or early in 1960 to be specific, not Pacific because that would be the ocean, but but in China in 1960, which is right in the middle of the Great Famine, and there's not that much information out there about what China was actually like because Mao was in power. And he and his government was in power, and so they still control a lot of the information that gets out about what happened at the time. So I found some books and some information about it. I mean, like during the Great Famine. It was totally created by the government and killed between 36 and 45 million people.
Wow.
And they created the whole thing, and it was between, I believe it was like 59 to 62. So within 3 years, that many people died because of the government. And but it also makes for a very interesting backdrop in which to have a story. So, and there are accounts that have come out where there was cannibalism. And I mean, people were actually killing their children to eat. I can't imagine doing that.
Neither.
But we're not in that situation, and we're not desperate. So it would be, but I still can't imagine doing that.
No.
But it does, like I said, this makes for a very interesting backdrop.
Yeah.
And I have been to China, but not where I'm writing about. And where I'm writing about is very remote, so there's not a lot of information. It's like, why do you have to choose some place that's like way the hell out there, and I can't find any information on it?
There's another book that Desiree and I are co-authoring right now. It's actually a paranormal steampunk western. It's set in San Francisco in the 1800s. So, yeah, it's outlined, but yeah, there's still like research to do to fill in the gaps there, and try to make a cohesive whole out of it. But that's another one of those projects kind of gotten set aside right now because of other things, research and other things. That's like, okay, we can get this project done faster or something. So,
is that it? Would it be set in like the late 1800s?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a period there when San Francisco was very lawless.
Mm-hmm.
So,
at least with that one, we're able to find information on, not like what you were talking about, the book you're working on.
Yeah, that's completely different. Yeah, that should be very interesting. And of course, you're going to have to go visit San Francisco because, just because.
At least we're in the same state already.
Yeah, that's true. I would love to go visit China and go to some of those places and then write it off, right?
There you go.
That's the plan. That's the plan. So, is there anything else that you would like to add about your process, about your books, where they can find you? Other than Umbral Press, do you have your own website?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I thought I'd put that out there earlier.
Well, be sure to speak it, because once this goes up on YouTube, you can type it in, but also once it goes up on YouTube, they're not going to be able to see everything, the ticker tape down the right-hand side.
Okay, it's scottharper.net is my website.
Oh, great. And
the .com was already taken by someone else, so grab the .net then.
I would imagine that is not an uncommon name.
Yeah, it's you type Scott Harper into a search engine, you'll pull up a lot of stuff on politicians and other Scott Harpers that are involved in the entertainment industry, and there's actually been some confusion as to which one I am, and so I've gotten emails before, talking about how much people liked projects that aren't mine that were by someone else named Scott Harper. So it's happened.
That becomes an issue. So where else can they find you? Are you on Facebook? Are you on Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter, Facebook, Goodreads, Google+.
Is there a specific Scott Harper is for like Facebook? Is it?
Facebook, I actually have two Facebook pages. One I call my goof off page, and the other is my fan page. The fan page is Scott Harper Author for that one. And then on Twitter, it's Scott_Harper. Google Plus is, I think, the same, actually. I don't do too much on Google Plus. I'm on there, but not that extensively. But I'm all over the place across social networking and, trying to promote stuff. And so, yeah, if anyone's looking for me, they'll find me easily.
And they can also find you at Umbral Press, which is UMB as in boy, RAL press.com.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
Great. And you blog regularly, you said?
Oh, yeah, on my website, I actually have a WordPress blog that shows up on the front page of my website, the scottharper.net. So I try to update that every day, Monday through Friday.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
Doesn't always happen, but I try to.
Right. And then you're also, where are your Bigfoot articles going to be coming out?
The first 5 of them are already up on the Big Truth blog on Blogspot.
Okay, so the first 5 are already up on the bigtruth.blogspot.com. Is that what it's?
Bigtruth.blogspot.com, yes.
Great. I think I'm going to have to check that out. I'm interested. I find the whole thing about Bigfoot very interesting. There's been stories about it for centuries, not just. I was telling you about that book that my daughter and I were reading together, and they had a Big Truth blog. Okay. And that particular book said, oh, well, there weren't really, no one had talked about Bigfoot at all until after that video came out. And then everybody was, the one that
Harrison Gimlin.
Yeah. And they said there were no stories. And I thought, well, that's not, I don't remember exactly when it was set. I have an interesting story for you before we wrap up here. Pardon?
Desiree just walked in a couple of minutes ago. I was asking her if she can grab the power cord for my laptop because it's warning me that it's going to go dead soon. I'm on battery right here. So she's grabbing the power cord here so this doesn't just shut down on us.
That would be great. So this story, back in, my mom was pregnant, I think, with my sister. So this was back in 1965. And my dad he was a foreman for a construction company that built a lot of roads up in Northern California. And this particular road was going, I think it was near Truckee, somewhere up in that area. I don't remember, but it was up in the Sierra Nevada. And so the only thing out there's nothing out there. This is, you remember, it's 1965, so it's not built up like it is now. And so she's sitting there waiting for my dad in their car. And he had to go survey where the road was going to go. And I think a few days before that, there had been a Bigfoot sighting in the area. And it's getting on dark. And my dad and my mom's sitting there alone. And she said, I had so many thoughts going through my head. And then your dad is out in the forest alone, tagging these trees where the road's going to go and putting in posts and stuff. And she said, but when he came out of those trees, I've never seen him move so fast in my entire life because dusk was setting. And, I'm sure there's other things that could have been just as dangerous for him, but, for instance, like mountain lions, but, or a bear, but, that sure had him, he didn't see anything up there, but she said it sure was, it was very scary, a very tense moment because they were the only people for miles and miles and miles. So, yeah, I can imagine. I have a friend who lives in Ohio, and she had a lot of experiences at their old home. One where she said you can actually smell them because they're very stinky.
Yeah. Yeah, they can leave a scent that will linger.
Well, so I want to thank you for coming today, and I'm glad that you were able to make it. And
thank you.
We'll have to do this again sometime. Say hello to Des for me, and or she may hear me. She waves.
Yeah, she can hear you. She's waving.
Well, she could sneak around and say hello.
She's coming over to say hi too then.
Hi, Marcy.
Hi.
In on his interview.
Yeah, well, it's okay. It's the first time I get to meet him before I actually get to meet you.
Yes.
But it's great to see you, and thank you for coming, Scott. Great to see you, Des. And thank you for coming to my the Publishing Lounge. I hope that you will tune in next week at 4 p.m. This is Marcy Bond, and you can find me again at marcybond.com, wildchildpublishing.com, freyasbauer.com, and I'm on Facebook and Twitter under Marcy Bond. And again, thank you for coming. And next week, I will be here speaking to Trinity Blasio. So I hope that you will come and see us this time and visit us. And thank you again. Bye-bye.